All right, guys, so all we have left to finish up is the War of 1812, so you should have a fill-in-the-blank note sheet, so we're just going to go through it kind of quickly. I hope y'all are behaving and acting like you would if I was here. Miss y'all. All right, so the War of 1812 also gets nicknamed America's Second War for Independence because we are once again at war with Great Britain. Again, we feel justified kind of going to war, and we'll kind of talk about some of the events leading up to it. All right, so some of the causes, okay, stepping back. So again, a lot of this we have already talked about. So we were already in conflict with Great Britain. So remember, we talked about yesterday, when Great Britain starts attacking our ships again, this violates Jay's Treaty. Okay, so again, just kind of get the conditions that we talked about in your blank. So Great Britain was attacking American ships, and Great Britain was keeping troops in the U.S. forts. So again, that's temporarily resolved, but as we talked about yesterday, they will once again start attacking our ships because we are trading with France. Okay, so again, this right here ends our treaty with Great Britain. We're at conflict again, and we kind of have to weigh the cost of, okay, do we let the British continue kind of walking all over us, or do we stand up for ourselves and once again go to war with Great Britain? Okay. And again, I'm trying to wait to make sure that you all have it filled in the blank. And again, kind of highlighted the bold words for you that I've already put. If you guys miss anything, we'll go over it on Thursday together. Okay, so another cause. So we talked about this a little bit yesterday when we talked about impressment. So again, when they were attacking the ships, they were also impressing soldiers. So they were forcing the soldiers to work aboard British ships. Okay, so again, unfair, violation of rights. And again, this is kind of one of the things that is going to push us to war. Okay, so again, just make sure that you're getting impressment and highlight that. And then I've given you this here. Again, I won't ask you specifically, but so you can see kind of the dynamics and how intense it was that they impressed or kidnapped over 6,000 American soldiers. Okay, so the election of 1808, we're going to see kind of a little bit of changing of hands. Okay, so Thomas Jefferson serves his 2 terms, and like we talked about, George Washington sets that precedent or that tradition that you will only serve 2 terms. So James Madison is going to be elected as a Democratic Republican. Okay, so you see Charles Pinckney running again. We talked about him in several elections, not getting many. An independent Republican. We see that start to break away from Democratic Republicans for the first time. Okay, but all you really need to know, James Madison wins, and that he is a Democratic Republican. Okay, so Thomas Jefferson kind of initiates the War of 1812 as far as conflicts kind of leading up to it, but it'll be Madison who leads us through this war. Okay, now again, we've been in both conflict with Britain and with Native Americans. Okay, so like we talked about with the French and Indian War, Britain is going to form an alliance with Native Americans against the United States. Okay, so a couple of key things. They're going to give them guns to start fighting against Americans. And then Britain promised land back to Native Americans if they help the British win. Okay, so again, competing over land. We're still mad at the British for attacking our ships. They are going to get Native American troops involved. So remember, under the Treaty of Greenville, we have pushed them out of the Ohio Country. And as we talked about yesterday, exploring the Louisiana Territory, we know we're going to bump into them again, and most of the time we really just encourage them to get out of our way. So we keep making treaties, we keep breaking promises, and this is going to lead to hostile Native Americans. Okay? You need to know Tecumseh. He is a leader who is going to join Great Britain to fight against the United States. Okay? So he helps lead the Native American tribes with the British against the United States with these. And remember, the British are providing those weapons to the Native Americans to fight against us. Okay, significant battle that takes place in that is going to be the Battle of Tippecanoe. Okay, so you need to know this guy right here, General William Henry Harrison. Okay, so he is actually going to take down Tecumseh and his warriors. Okay, this is a huge victory for them, and he is actually going to kind of run on this campaign of winning this battle. Okay, so when we talk about Tippecanoe, you can kind of see it here as one of the rivers, and a lot of battles are named after those geographical features. Okay, so he becomes a war hero and uses that to help win the presidency later on. Okay, 1812, the thing I just put up there, Madison wins re-election. Okay, so you kind of see an advertisement for the war we're getting ready to do and how that's going to divide the country. Okay, so we have kind of two sides. So we have warhawks and then we have doves. So you need to know the warhawks. They're going to push for war with Britain. Okay, so think about a hawk. They're more aggressive, where doves represent peace. So a hawk is advocating for the United States to actually declare war. And at this point, we kind of seek that as a way, okay, we'll go ahead and take over land in Canada. Okay, so once we declare war, we understand that we have a few problems. Remember, we are still just a little baby country, and we did not have a very big military. So going against Britain, they had the strongest navy at this time period, and again, a very strong army. So again, don't specifically have to know these numbers. I think I gave these to you. We had 12 ships versus Britain's 800 ships. Okay, so very small military, so we're relying on that militia. And remember that militia, we talked about that kind of less formal army where we kind of rely on the people around you. Okay, so throughout the war, again, we're fighting over that Canadian territory. So a lot of the battles are actually going to be fought on the Great Lakes with the navies. Okay, so remember we labeled the Great Lakes on our maps yesterday. Lots of fights are going to happen through there. So remember, Britain is occupying this territory up here and going to attack through Canada. Okay, they also seek the opportunity to go ahead and burn our capital, which has now been placed as Washington, D.C. So they try to burn the Capitol building, and they also burn parts of the White House, which if you remind me when I come back, I have a picture of the White House in today's state, and you can see the different colors from where it was burnt and then had to be remodeled. Anyway, so Britain comes in, burns down Washington, D.C., part of the White House, part of the Capitol. But luckily, the president kind of had a heads up that they were headed that way, so he was able to leave the White House. And that probably the most famous picture of George Washington, it is rumored that his wife, Dolly Madison, put it up on her dress to hide it from the British and save it, and we still have that hanging in the White House today. Okay, a couple other places they're going to target along the Chesapeake Bay was going to be Baltimore, Maryland. Okay, so at the Battle of Fort McHenry, they are just going to be bombarded straight. Okay, and while they're being bombarded on a ship is Francis Scott Key. Okay, so he's just watching the attack, and in the attack you can kind of see the American flag hanging in the background, and that is going to inspire Francis Scott Key to write the Star-Spangled Banner, which becomes our national anthem. Okay, so the war is dragging on. There is not much progress. Okay, so we decide on both sides to end the war. So we have the Treaty of Ghent, okay, named for where it is signed in Belgium. Okay, and this ends the war, and really, uneventfully, no land exchanges hands. Okay, so even though we thought we would use this opportunity to take over Canada from the British, no land actually exchanged hands. Okay, but the problem is, once they were leaving Baltimore, going back here a little bit, once the British were going to Baltimore, we knew they were going to New Orleans. Remember, we talked about yesterday how important New Orleans was to our economy. So the British, after leaving Baltimore, were heading there, and we knew that. Okay, so meanwhile, the treaty is being signed ending the war, but nobody gets the message to the soldiers that are in New Orleans. So even after the war is ended, we're going to have one more major battle, and that's going to be the Battle of New Orleans. Okay, so really cool to see. You can go actually see that battlefield today in New Orleans. Take a boat ride up the Mississippi River, and they drop you off there. Very cool if you ever visit. Okay, so Andrew Jackson becomes kind of this war hero of the Battle of New Orleans. Okay, so again, no one really got the memo that the war was actually over, but we're able to get this one last jab into the British and we win this major battle. Okay, Jackson becomes a famous war hero, and again, very similar to what we talked about with William Henry Harrison, he will also kind of use this to help him become president. Okay, so even though it's kind of uneventful, goes back and forth, and then ends in a tie or a stalemate. Okay, this shows that we stand as our own. Okay, we become a world power, and we are going to use this to influence our foreign policy. Okay, super important because that's going to lead us right into what we talk about next unit. This is going to boost our pride in our country. We can stand our own. We don't feel like a baby country anymore. And this is going to increase that nationalism and patriotism, or that pride in your country. Okay, so that's all. So make sure that you do your article on the Louisiana Purchase and your standard chart, and make sure you are behaving.